everybody. We are here with our friends from Legal Assistance of Olmsted County. And why don't you tell me what your name is and what your role is in the organization?
My name is Karen Fairbairn-Nath, and I'm the Executive Director of LAOC.
And I'm Lisha Sanchez-Romero, and I'm a qualified legal paraprofessional.
Awesome. So last year when we did our $5 5K for you guys, we went to your location. We learned all about all the programs that you offer, all the clinics, so many resources. Those are all available. We can look that up on your website. But today we're going to talk a little bit about eviction, focus on that particular issue. So why don't you tell me why that issue of eviction is important today and like in our community?
We were seeing a tremendous rise of evictions in Olmsted County, which is true throughout the entire state of Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And that's way before the pandemic.
Mm.
So when someone is evicted and they no longer have stable housing, it's the spiral that really takes everything down. Okay, kids can't stay in schools. Families are living in cars. We all know what winter is like here.
Mm-hmm.
No address, can't get a job. So keeping people in stable housing is really important for this community.
Mm-hmm.
And Lisha has been a critical player in helping us with our eviction work as we saw what I call a tsunami of evictions post-pandemic.
So, Lisha, why don't you tell me a little bit about like what your work is and what your role is in the organization? You said you're a qualified legal paraprofessional. Okay, qualified legal paraprofessional. Okay, so what does that mean, and how does that tie in with the work that?
So what that allows me to do, or anyone admitted in the program, is to provide legal advice and legal representation in depends on the type of case and law, but all under the supervision of a Minnesota licensed attorney.
Okay.
And the program was intended to increase access to legal representation. So our main housing attorney, Kaylee Nasman, and she always says that she alone wouldn't be able to take that many cases if it wasn't for my participation in the program.
Right, okay. So there's definitely a need for that legal aid assistance, and there's not enough people to do that, it sounds like.
Right.
Yeah.
We're turning away 50 to 60% of qualified applicants who apply for our services and they have a critical legal issue involved. And we're turning them away because we lack capacity.
Yeah. So in terms of eviction, let's talk a little bit about like what is an eviction, or like when can it happen, or like what are like kind of the circumstances, I guess, that might lead somebody into that kind of situation?
Yeah, so here in Minnesota, there are 3 bases for an eviction. Like Karen said earlier, there's breach of lease, failure to vacate, and the most common one that we see is non-payment of rent.
Okay.
And so I can talk a little bit about the timeline there. So non-payment of rent, really what we see a lot is just it takes your car to break down. You get sick, you lose hours at your job, and that just again derails and becomes you fall further behind. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, when you are behind in rent, your landlord would give you a 14-day notice, so a 2-week notice.
14 days.
Yes.
Okay.
So once those 14 days are up, say the tenant is still there and has not paid the full balance, then the landlord has the right to file an eviction. And so it will be scheduled with the court. Again, depends on their availability, but we know they will schedule it at least 7 to 14 days out, and that will allow time for the landlord to serve the tenant. So they must be served at least 7 days before the eviction hearing. Mm-hmm. And so with that whole timeline, you're looking at maybe like 4 weeks until you're in your initial eviction hearing. And then the most important thing that we first look at is if everything was done right, if service was done right, if they were given that 14-day notice, procedure-wise, if everything was done correctly. If so, we move on to see how can we help this tenant. So if they would like to stay, we want to make sure, do they have the funds to pay now and moving forward? Because it's more important that we don't want them to be in the same situation a few months from now.
Right, sure, that makes sense, yeah.
And other option is if they would like to, they know it's not affordable for them, but they just need time to to find another place or anything else. So we're there to help them out. So just to give them more time or to set up a payment plan, but just to make sure there's no gap in housing.
But really, like, I think what I'm hearing is that like you could be, 4 weeks from like an eviction notice to being out on the streets, in that sense.
Or less.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it's so the probably most important thing for somebody to do when they get that eviction notice is to reach out to you or to some other legal counsel, right?
Correct.
Yeah, right
Right.
away.
The vast bulk of people who are being evicted tend to qualify for our services,
Right.
which would be 200% of federal poverty guidelines or less.
Okay.
And if you're being evicted or you're faced with an eviction, we will get you in right away. And we have an incredible partnership with Olmsted County's Housing Stability Team and a new relationship with the Rochester Public School System, so that we're working sort of what I'd say the back end of things to try to come up with a resolution
Right.
to an eviction as quickly as we can, because the time frame is short, and the consequences of being evicted are huge.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have an eviction on your record, that will potentially could prevent you from renting again in the future.
Yes, that's true.
And so when we try to help with regards to a settlement and find time for the tenant, whether that's a payment plan or time to vacate, we do our very best to include expungement in the settlement terms. So if they comply by either completing that payment plan or vacating, then we're able to move forward and expunge that eviction case. But
because it is important to get that eviction expunged from your record in order to be able to rent again. And I think the new laws and some of the ways that we've been helping people have really helped people get older evictions off their record.
So it sounds like this is really important work. Why don't you tell us a little bit about like maybe an example of somebody that you've helped, a client, and maybe what the results or the outcome of that has been.
I had a single mother who had 3 children and she spoke very little English. And she was paying her rent on time as for what she understood she was. And her landlord, a few months into the new year, had said that she was really behind on her rent, which again, she did not understand how, if she was paying it on time and landlord wasn't saying anything the previous months. And so that's when she came over to us. I had asked her if she could provide me her ledger, her lease, and see if we could look at, why the landlord was saying she was behind. And it actually turns out that the landlord was charging her rent incorrectly, and it was actually at a higher rate than it agreed.
Oh, okay.
And she,
so because you were able to look at that lease and help explain and walk her through that and help her understand that, and then talk to the landlord.
Yeah. So we were not only able to clear up the discrepancy of the whole thing, but then it turned out she was having a hard time to catch up. So because so many months had went by and the landlord was not accepting partial payments of rent, which she thought at the time was full payments. And so at that time, our office was working with rental assistants. So we were able to point her to rental assistants, and they were able to help her with not only the whole back rent, but 3 months future rent to help her and her family get back on her feet. And that ended up being over $12,000.
Okay. What I'm hearing though is that like everybody's working together. There's a lot of different organizations in town. There's a lot of people in your organization specifically. You mentioned RPS, like all these other. Everybody has to kind of work together in order to help lift people out of these situations and prevent them, from happening in the first place.
Right.
Because I think what's important to know is that a landlord and tenant relationship is just that. It's a relationship. Landlord wants to be paid. He wants his property to be maintained. A tenant wants a pleasant, livable place to live. And we feel strongly that if we can repair that relationship quickly, we can prevent an eviction from being filed. And one of the ways we do that, besides the eviction clinic, is we have a landlord-tenant clinic So if you are having a problem working with your landlord to get a repair done or to get a security deposit back, we can also help with those types of legal issues.
So if somebody is needing your assistance with something, what is the first step? Like, what should they do? Should they pick up the phone and call? Do they make an appointment online, or what's the process, I guess?
They have to apply for our services, and you can do it very easily by going to LAOCMN.org. So they finish an application process, we review the application, and again, depending on the emergency and the timeline, we get people in as soon as we can. Probably in 80 to 85% of the eviction cases that we take, we're getting a positive outcome for the tenant. So we're getting really positive results from the work that we do with our eviction clinic. And again, keeping people in stable housing is not just good for that individual or that family. It's really good for the community, for the employer. You know, the cost of an eviction for the county is huge, right? When people are unhoused. And not to mention when you think about what it's like to sleep in your car in January or February. Right?
And I mean, we all know that there's not enough shelter space, and there's not, so it's definitely, definitely important. But 80% is, I mean, I don't think a lot of people could say that they have an 80% success rate on anything. So that's pretty good.
So that's where LAISHA, the work that our housing team does with regard to the eviction work, is so important. And LAISHA, being a qualified paraprofessional, has really made a difference. We're probably able to double the numbers of people that we're able to help.
Nice. So it sounds like some of your funding is probably from, county. There's probably some grants, there's, whatever, but there's probably also a component of, you just need people to donate and help you out, because you're not working for free, obviously. And there's a lot of, costs involved when it comes to, court filings and all those other things as well too. So can somebody make a donation on your website, or?
Absolutely. They can make a donation on our website. They can come to the 5K Run Walk on May 5th. And we have an annual fundraiser, and this year it will be held November 8th. And we actually have a nationally recognized speaker on housing and housing instability coming to talk at that fundraiser on November 8th. There'll be more information on our website. But yes, anyone who wants to can make a direct donation to us. And in this day and age, I think for all nonprofits, funding is very, very insecure right now. So we're going to be looking more and more to individual donors to help us keep our lights on and our rent paid.
Great. So the people that come out to the $5 5K, obviously the $5 will go directly back to helping support this program and other programs that you guys do. People are also welcome to make an additional donation at the $5 5K if they would like, but hopefully we'll have a good crowd. We'll have a lot of people to come out, maybe learn a little bit more about what you guys do on May 5th. And we're looking forward to having you guys out again. So
thank you, and thank you for doing this for the community. Honestly, thank you.
Yeah, you were so welcome, and thank you for coming and talking with us. It's an important topic, and I really appreciate the time. So.
Thank you.
Awesome, great, that was fabulous.
Yay. Okay.